Hello students, welcome to FS Cloud. My name is Shashmita. We have an app by the name Careers Cloud which you can go and download through the Play Store. Once you have downloaded the application, you will easily be able to log in using your Gmail ID. And once you have logged in, you will be redirected to this page where you will be getting this URL. And there will be option for home, all courses, my courses and download section in this application. You will be getting multiple PDFs, multiple content on daily basis that will be enhancing your learning. Under Crack Current Affairs, you will be able to see multiple options. First one is Current Affairs English. We upload the day-to-day basis news in the English format. And apart from English PDF, we also provide them in Hindi format. And this banking awareness, we upload a PDF every month. So this PDF will contain the banking news, banking and the finance news of that respective month. And Current Affairs Exam PDF will have two categories. One is that most important news of that particular month will be uploaded in this Current Affairs Exam PDF. And also Exam Perspective PDF will also be uploaded. And next is Special CA. This will contain Union Budget, Economic Survey, and also the most important events that had taken place globally as well as nationally. And next most important is topic wise. So the entire news of that particular month will be segregated into different topics. And in order to recollect whatever you've read, we also provide you with topic wise quizzes. Apart from that, we also provide state current affairs. Now, here if you see, we provide you with the day-to-day PDF, and this we provide you with the weekly PDF. So that particular week news will be compiled into a PDF and in question and answer format in English and will be uploaded here. And to enhance your learning, you can also, to enhance and strengthen your learning, you can also attend the quiz. Here we provide you with the entire news of that particular week. But here we take the top 60 most important news and we upload it in this PDF in question and answer format. Apart from weekly, we also provide you the monthly ones. This PDF will contain detailed view of that particular month news, and this will have a brief format of the same news. This will be in the form of a question and answer format, and this will have the top 100 question and answer of that particular month. We also provide you with the PIB news on a day-to-day basis, which you can go and read in these particular tabs. Apart from that, we also provide the Union Budget and Economic Survey. You can also attend you can read after reading the PDF. You can also go and attend the quiz. This is available in the Special CA category. We also provide state level current affairs. So this will be very helpful for students who are preparing for state level exams. For example, if you are preparing for Tamil Nadu state level exams, then you can click this tab and you will be able to see all the current affairs or news related to Tamil Nadu. Apart from that, we also provide PDF from the exam perspective. Suppose you are preparing for RBI Assistant Mains, then this tab will contain 5 to 6 months of current affairs, which has high probability of being asked in RBI Assistant Mains. Similarly, for SBI PO, RRB PO, Clerk Mains, all these are being given under this section. And also we provide separate content-wise, topic-wise current affairs like national affairs, government schemes, international affairs, banking and finance, economy and businesses, MOUs and committees and meetings. All these different types of news are segregated in these particular categories. Hello students, welcome to our new initiative. In this initiative, we will be uploading the weekly current affairs on banking and finance section. So this will be uploaded on every Monday. And so on the whole, per month, you will have totally 4 videos related to this topic. And apart from just providing you with the banking and finance news, we also provide you the conceptual explanation so that this will enhance and also strengthen your knowledge about these topics. Today, we will be covering August 4th week banking and finance awareness news. Moving to the first news. So if you see, RBI has tightened the HFC norms to bring them on par with the NBFCs. So RBI has issued guidelines to tighten the norms related to public deposit acceptance by housing finance companies in order to bring them on par with the non-banking financial companies. So this guideline will be in effect from 1st January 2025. So if you see, in 2019, there was an amendment that led to the transfer the powers to regulate housing finance companies from NHB to RBI. So prior to 2019, it was the NHB that was regulating the housing finance company. So if you see, currently the total liquid assets that the housing finance company has to maintain as a percentage of the deposit is 13%. So if you see the total deposit is 100 crore, means at least 13 crores they have to maintain as liquid assets. That is the current scenario. In that 13%, 6.5% should be in the form of unencumbered approved securities. So these are the unencumbered approved securities. That is dated security of the government. T-bills and state development loans are all the unencumbered approved securities. So out of 13%, they have to maintain 6.5% in these securities. By January 1, 2025, they have to maintain a total liquid asset of 14%, and in that this unencumbered approved security will be 8%. Similarly, by July 2025, it should be increased to 15%, and a sub limit of 10% on these type of securities. So remember this, it is very important. So currently it is 13%, by Jan it should be 14, and by July it should be 15%. Next, it has reduced the ceiling on the quantum of deposit. That is the amount of public deposit that the housing finance company can accept. It has been reduced from 3 times of the net owned fund to 1.5 times of the net owned fund. That is, it has halved. It has come to one half of the previous limit. So previously it was allowed to accept deposit of amount up to 3 times of its net owned fund. Now it has been reduced to 1.5 times of the net owned fund. So in case if the deposit taking HFCs, they have in excess of the revised limit. So if you see now, this has been reduced, but currently it is 3 times, right? So what they already have 3 times, then what to do? In that case, they are not allowed to accept fresh public deposit or renew existing deposit till they conform to the revised limit. So if there is any deposit that is going to be maturing, then they shouldn't renew it, but they should return it to the customer, because the limit should fall to 1.5 times of the net owned fund. If it is more than 1.5, then they have to mature, then they have to give back the funds if it is maturing. If it is lesser than 1.5 times of the net owned fund, then it can continue the renewal process. But the excess deposit will be allowed to run off till maturity. So only the mature deposits has to be returned. In case of the deposits that are not yet maturing, then even though it is more than the limit, it can still run till the maturity. Next is that asset cover. So the revised regulation have mandated that the housing finance company, they have to ensure that the full asset cover is available for the public deposit. That is, whatever liability, all the deposits are the liabilities to the housing finance company. So they have to ensure that they have enough assets to cover this liability. If at all the asset has reduced, if at all they don't have enough assets to cover this liability, then they have to inform the NHB in case the above asset cover falls short of the liability on account of public deposits. So if it falls short, then they have to go and inform the National Housing Bank. And next is that the maximum time period for public deposit. So you know that the NBFCs, they cannot accept demand deposits. They can only accept time deposits. So if you see, currently until now, the minimum deposit period is 12 months. And the maximum deposit period is 120 months, that is 10 years. But now the RBI has reduced the maximum deposit period from 120 months to 60 months. So this only can be the maximum deposit period. So RBI mentioned that the public deposit accepted or renewed by housing finance company, they are now required to be repayable after a period of 12 months or more, but not later than 60 months. So minimum deposit time is 12 months and the maximum deposit period time is 60 months. But the existing deposits which maturity above 60 months can be repaid as per the repayment profile. So already you have opened a deposit last year and the tenure is for 10 years. Then that can be allowed to be repaid after 9 years. But if you are opening any new deposit, then it has to be opened only for the maximum period of about 16 months only. So if you see, at present, HFC are allowed to accept or renew deposits repayable after a period of 12 months or more, but not later than 120 months. So this is how the existing scenario is, and this is the new scenario. Minimum investment grade credit rating. So it is now mandatory for all deposit taking HFC to obtain a minimum investment grade credit rating at least once a year. Then only they will be able to accept deposits. So if you do not have a minimum investment grade rating, then you cannot accept deposit. If you need to accept deposit, then a minimum investment credit rating is required. If the credit rating of the housing finance company fall below the required grade, then it will not be allowed to renew the existing deposit or accept new ones. So there will be a minimum rating, credit rating. So if this rating of the HFC company, it falls below this credit rating, then you should return the deposit, that is the maturing deposit should be returned, and you should not accept new deposits. Only if it is above this minimum credit rating, you can accept new deposits. Next is board approval for internal limits. So as per the new regulation, the deposit taking housing finance company will be required to fix the board approved internal limits for investments in unquoted shares of another company. So unquoted shares means these are the shares that are not listed in the stock exchange. So there should be a limit up to how much they can invest in this unquoted shares of another company. So this should be board approved. Next is that non-deposit taking HFC with asset size of 1000 crore and above, they can now participate in the currency option exchange, and also housing finance company, now they can participate in the credit default swap. So remember, and non-deposit taking HFC of rupees 1000 crore and above can participate in currency option exchange, and similarly HFC can participate now in credit default swap. Similarly, deposit taking HFC and non-deposit taking HFC with asset size of 1000 crore and above can now participate in the interest rate future exchange. Now these three options that are now provided will help in maintaining the liquidity of the HFC company, housing finance company. So remember, they can now participate in currency option exchange, credit default swap and interest rate future exchange. Moving to the next news. So RBI tightens norms for the NBFC P2P lending platform to exchange transparency compliance. Now, what is this P2P lending platform? It is a platform where the lenders who have money can lend their money and borrowers who are in need of the money can borrow money from these lenders. So P2P, it merely just acts as a platform. It is an intermediary where it exchanges the money between the lender and the borrower. It does not provide any funding support. It only provides a platform for these lenders and the borrowers to meet and exchange money. So now what is the issue is that a lot of P2P lending platforms, they are promoting it as an assured return product. So this is not an assured return product, because here also there are chances of becoming NPA. Here also there are chances that the borrower will not return back the money and the lender can lose the money. That can also happen here. So for this purpose, RBI has tightened the norms for the NBFC P2P lending platforms. So if you see the NBFC P2P, they have to refrain from cross-selling insurance products. So they can only sell loan specific insurance products. Since there is a loan, only one loan is involved, that is lending of the money between the lender and the borrower. Only insurance pertaining to that loan should be sold and no other selling of insurance should take place in this P2P platform. And second one is that prohibited P2P platform. So as I said in the previous slide, the P2P platforms, NBFC, they are promoting it as an investment tool. So like tenure linked assured minimum returns, like this, they are promoting the P2P platform, but it is not like that. There are chances that the lenders can lose the money that they have provided. So the P2P platform should not promote it as an investment tool. This is the second one. Third is a board approved loan dispersal. So the RBI has mandated that no loan will be dispersed unless the lenders and the borrowers have been properly matched according to the board approved policy. Next is that fund transfer via the escrow account. See, there will be a lender. For that, for all lenders, there should be a lender escrow account. Similarly, for all borrowers, there should be a borrower escrow account. So whatever the money that lender provides, this should go to the escrow account, and from this escrow account, it should go to the borrower. Similarly, whatever money the borrower returns, it should go to the borrower's escrow account. From this borrower escrow account, it should go to the lender's account. This is how it should work. So if you see, it is now required to have minimum 2 escrow accounts, one for the funds received from the lenders and pending disbursement, and other for collection from the borrowers. And one more important point is that how long can it stay? How long the money can stay in the escrow account? It can stay only for T+1 day. After T+1 day, the amount should be dispersed to the borrower or to the lender respectively. It should not, the fund should not stay in the escrow account beyond T+1 day. Remember, this is very important. Next is that loan limit of 50 lakhs. Here, if you see the lender across all P2P platforms, it is required to, it is very important that they should have a maximum exposure of only 50 lakhs. So across all P2P platforms, lenders should have provided only 50 lakhs of his money. So RBI has imposed a setting cap on the aggregate exposure of a lender to all borrowers through P2P platforms, restricting it only to 50 lakhs. This is an important number. And also, lenders who are dispersing loans above 10 lakhs, they must provide a certificate from a chartered accountant verifying a minimum net worth of 50 lakhs. So, if you're dispersing, if you're providing more than 10 lakhs to a P2P platform, then you should get a certificate from the CA certifying your minimum net worth. It should be at least 50 lakhs. Then only you can disperse loan more than 10 lakhs. This is the fifth point. Last one is that providing performance data. So as I said, here lenders can also lose money if the borrowers do not return their money. So there are also chances of NPA happening in this P2P platform. So it is now mandatory for the NBFC P2P entities to make publicly available that portfolio performance data, which includes information on the non-performing assets on a monthly basis. So they should ensure that all these details, that is the performance, the NPA, everything should be published on a monthly basis, updated on a monthly basis on the P2P platform website. About Reserve Bank of India, the Governor Shaktikant Das, he is the 25th Governor of Reserve Bank of India and it is headquartered in Mumbai, Maharashtra. We have launched a new course called Static Banking Awareness Course. Now this course will be helpful for students who are preparing for the banking exams and for the regulatory body exams. And also recently you would have seen Paytm Bank in news frequently. So when an aspirant reads this news, he would have ample number of questions like what is a payment bank, what are the norms for it, and which is the committee that has launched it. So this static banking awareness course lays a foundation to the current banking and finance news. Now you have to download our Careers Cloud to access this course. Once you have logged into our app, you can go and click this all courses icon and then you'll be redirected to this page. In this you have to go and click the static banking awareness course, and under the details tab you will be able to see a brief about this course, and under the part tab it will contain all the contents, all the topics of the contents that are currently available in this course. We are working on this continuously and this will be completed within 2 months. Under the free tab, you can go and access one content, that is the origin and development content, for free. You can go and read this content and have an idea about this course. After reading this content, do attend the quiz that is also available under the same tab. Now, our team has allocated ample amount of time and resources to curate this content. We have created this content from various books and from various verified websites. Our content is better than any book that is available in the market. This is because we update this content on a dynamic basis. For example, there are currently 39 DRTs that are available in the country now. In future, if one more DRT is created or added, then it would become 40. So we would update this content on a dynamic basis. But in case of books, you have to wait for the next publication for this updated content. Nowadays, a lot of practical questions have been asked in the banking exams. For example, how many public sector banks are available on the stock exchange? Which is the payment bank that is being listed on the stock exchange? So we try to cover as many practical questions as possible in this course. Apart from this, we also provide you a question bank that will contain around 3000 questions and the previous year questions along with it. We also have a dedicated tab that will release the important RBI notification and the frequent news released by the RBI. You can use this code B15 to avail 15% discount. This is one of the highest discounts that we have offered until now. So do avail this code B15 while you purchase the course. Next news is about NRI deposit data that has been released by Reserve Bank of India. So according to the RBI data released, if you see the overseas Indians, they have deposited nearly $4 billion into the NRI deposit schemes in the first quarter of financial year 25, which was 79% more than the first quarter of financial year 24, where just 2.21 billion was deposited. So if you see in Q1 FY24, only 2.21 billion was deposited, whereas now in Q1 financial year 25, almost 3.95 billion has been deposited, which is an increase of about 79%. So this is in contrast with the outward remittance. This is the inward remittance, and in case of outward remittance, if you see, there was a drop of 24.39% compared to the Q1 of the financial year 24. So if you see in Q1 financial year 25, it was only the outward remittance was around 6.9 billion, which is 24.39% lesser than that in Q1 financial year 24. So what does this NRI deposit scheme include? It includes FCNR, foreign currency account, NRE and NRO. So these are the various accounts where the overseas Indians deposit their money. So if you see in foreign currency, in non-resident deposits, it has increased from 1.12 billion in Q1 financial year 24 to 1.68 billion in this current quarter financial year 25. Similarly, NRE deposit, non-resident external. NRE deposit is where when the overseas NRI persons, they want to invest their external earnings in India. So here the external earnings are stored in this NRE deposits. So if you see, it has increased from 489 million to 1.53 billion. And NRO is when the NRI people, they want to manage their Indian income. So when they have invested in their house, they will get rental, right? So that rental amount or rental income will be stored in this NRO account, and interest earned from this NRO will be subject to tax. So if you see the non-resident ordinary deposit, they have increased from 598 million to 743 million. This is the case of the inward remittance. In case of outward remittance, if you see, the largest segment of outward remittance is always the international travel, and this international travel, it has registered a decrease of about 6%, that is to 3.8 billion in Q1 financial 25 from 4.07 billion in Q1 financial 24. So the main outward remittance, if you see, is travel, and in the travel it has seen a decrease of 6% compared to the previous quarter. Compared to the previous year's quarter. And similarly, if you see, the remittance to the close relatives also has decreased by around 46%. That is true, it has decreased to $983 million. And also investment in equity and debt schemes. You know that people here, they invest in NRA, they invest in equities, that is shares and debts outside India. So there they have seen a decrease to $318 million. So previously in Q1 financial 24, it was 503.73 million. That has decreased to $318 million. But there has been an increase in the medical treatment expense. So if you see, the remittance for medical treatment has witnessed an increase of 43.5%. And similarly, in case of donations also, there has seen an increase of 3.6%. So main thing here to remember that the inward remittance has increased, but the outward remittance has decreased. And the main reason is that travel, it has decreased by around 6%, and also the remittance to the close relatives has also decreased, and also investment in equity and debt also decreased. So remember these things also. The numbers are also not quite important, but remember the criteria or the segments where the decrease has happened. So in travel, close relatives remittance, and equity, the decrease has happened, but there has been an increase in the medical treatment and donation. Next news is that RBI has released a framework for the SROs in the financial markets. Now, what are these SROs? SRO is nothing but a self-regulatory organization. So they will act as an intermediate between the regulator and the industry. So they will help the regulator to regulate these industries. So what will the SRO do? So they will set the ground rules and enforce them on members. They will develop surveillance methods for effective monitoring. So it is not just laying the rules is not important, right? We have to ensure that the industry follows the rules. For that, you have to effectively monitor them. So for that, it will also develop surveillance methods. It will create standardized processes for handling disputes. So if the industry raises any dispute, for that also it will lay down the process to solve the disputes. And also it will act as a liaison between the industry and the regulator. So this is what an SRO will do. And what is the eligibility? So who can become an SRO? Not-for-profit company can become an SRO, and only regulated entities can be the members of the SRO. So remember, only regulated entities can be the member of this SRO, and RBI will approval might be needed before the appointment of the board of the directors of the SRO. So this is the structure of an SRO. So there had already been an SRO for the banking, fintech, NBFC, and now this SRO is for the financial markets. So we know that the financial market is very active nowadays. A lot of people are involved in the trading activities. So it is very, very important to develop an SRO for the financial market also. And for that, RBI has laid down the framework. So RBI has released the framework for recognition of the SRO in the financial markets to enhance the compliance nature and also provide a consultative platform for the policy making. So as per the new framework, the SRO financial market will be required to be set up as non-profit not-for-profit company, and it should be registered under the Section 8 of the Companies Act. So this SRO should have a minimum net worth of 10 crore rupees and should have the ability to create infrastructure that will allow to discharge the responsibility of the SRO. So it should be a not-for-profit company. It should be registered under Section 8 and the net worth should be minimum of 10 crores. So this is the conditions. Apart from that, it should also ensure that an entity should not hold more than 10% of the paid up capital. So suppose the paid up capital is 100 crores, then one single entity should not hold more than 10 crores. So this is very important because if the entity holds more than 50% or 40% of this paid up share, then it will lead to controlling of one single entity controlling the entire SRO and also misusing the powers. So this is very, very important. That is, the entity should not hold more than 10% of the paid up share capital. So next is that applicants, they are required to adequately represent the sector or the market with a good mix of members across different types and sizes of entities. So if you see, SROs can only have regulated entities as its members. So it should have various types of members like, high risk members, low risk, medium risk, and also it should have members whose asset size is very large, whose asset size is very small. So all these different good mix of all these different types is required. In case they are not able to find this good mix, in case they are only able to find high risk, they are not able to find low risk, in that case, they will be given 2 years of time. Within that, they should have a good mix of all members. So if you see, in case the representation is not adequate at the time of application, a roadmap not exceeding 2 years should be included for achieving the adequate representation within a reasonable time period. And next is also that the applicant and its directors must ensure that neither of them have been convicted of any offence including moral turpitude or economic offence in the past. Next is that the applicant and the directors, they should have enough professional competence and a general reputation for fairness and integrity. So this is very important to be followed for the applicant and the directors. And if you see, this framework was based on the Omnibus framework for the recognition of SRO for the regulated entities of the Reserve Bank of India, which was issued in 21st March 2024. So this was the base, and above this base only, this framework for the financial market SRO has been laid now. The next news is SEBI introduced new guidelines for borrowing by Category 1 and Category 2 alternate investment fund. Now, what is this alternate investment fund? These are privately pooled funds. So here the investors are mostly HNI, quality institutional buyers. So high profile investors only invest in this alternate investment fund because the minimum investment amount itself is 1 crore. And also these type of investments are very risky and only qualified persons can invest. They require well-versed financial knowledge to invest in this alternate investment funds. Now, if you see, there are 3 categories of alternate investment funds: Category 1, 2 and 3. One category invests in early stage SMEs and startups which are economically viable. And Category 3, they use diverse and complex trading strategies like hedge funds example. So these are the 2 categories, and the second category are the ones that does not fall in Category 1 and Category 2. So Category 2 AIF, they borrow money other than to meet day-to-day operational requirements only. So these are the 3 types of AIF, and SEBI has issued guidelines regarding the Category 1 and Category 2 AIF. So let us look into the guidelines. So as per the new guidelines, Category 1 and Category 2 AIF, they will be allowed to take loans to meet the temporary funding requirements and for day-to-day operational requirements. Only for these 2 purposes they can take loan, and that too the loan tenure should not be more than 30 days. That is, they are allowed to take loans to meet temporary funding and day-to-day operational requirements, but not for more than 30 days. So they can have to repay the amount within 30 days. And how many times can they borrow like this? So if you see, they can borrow for a maximum of 4 times in a year, and that too the amount should not exceed the 10% of the investable funds. So remember, it is within 30 days they have to repay the amount, and maximum they can borrow only 4 times in a year, and the amount should not exceed 10% of the investable funds. And apart from that, they have also, SEBI has also further outlined the additional conditions for category 1 and category 2 AIF who wants to borrow the money, that is the shortfall in the drawn down amount. Now what is the drawn down amount? The drawn down amount is that it is an amount called from the investor for making investments in the investee companies. So if you see, there will be an AIF and there will be a lot of investors. And these AIF, they invest in companies. They collect money from the investors and they invest in companies. So there will be a certain amount that they will raise from the investors. So they will tell that we are planning to invest this much amount. So we need this much amount. So maybe the agreement will be 100 crores. So they will make an agreement, but it's not required that the investors, they have to give the entire 100 crores at one go itself. They can invest 100 crores now, 25 crores now, and maybe after 1 month or 2 months, the alternate investment fund will call for the remaining 75 crores. Call in the sense they will ask the investors that you had committed 100 crores, you had already given 25 crores, now give me the remaining 75 crores. I am planning to invest the remaining 75 crores in the companies. That is what is call. So they will call the investors for the remaining capital. But now what they say is that there might be a shortfall in that case. Suppose they are calling for the 75 crores after 1 month from the investors. But few investors, they are not able to pay it during that period. Suppose they are calling after 30 days, they are calling for 75 crores. But the investors give only 60 crores. The remaining amount that they have called for has not been received by the alternate investment fund. So this is the shortfall. 75 crores and 60 crores. The shortfall is 15 crores. I hope you understand. When the investors, they promise to pay the 100 crores, they promise to invest 100 crores, and the alternate investment fund, they collect just 25 crores from the investors at present, and after 30 days they tell the investors that they will collect the remaining 75 crores. So after 30 days they will call for the remaining 75 crores from the investors. But in that 75 crores will not be provided by the investors, maybe because of some reasons there might be some shortfall by the investors. So the investors, they provide only 60 crores. So in that case there will be a shortfall of 15 crores. Now this 15 crores shortfall can be borrowed by the alternate investment fund. So alternate investment fund, they will borrow this 15 crores. For this, the conditions has been laid by the SEBI. So let us see what are the conditions that are laid regarding the borrowing of the shortfall amount. So if the alternate investment fund intends to borrow funds for meeting the shortfall in the drawn down amount, then they have to disclose it in the private placement memorandum. So this is a legal document that is provided to the investors. So this will contain all details about the investment. So in this, the drawn amount should also, the shortfall amount should also be specified in the private placement memorandum. And also the amount, the borrowed amount, it should not exceed 20% of the investment proposed or 10% of the investable funds of the schemes of the AIF or the pending commitments from the other investors. So the maximum borrowing amount should be less than 20% of the investment proposed or 10% of the investable funds or the pending amount commitments, whichever is low. Remember this is very, very important. And the cost of such borrowing, since the alternate investment is borrowing the funds, obviously they have to pay interest, right? So the cost of such borrowing shall be charged only to investors who fail to provide the drawn amount. So as I told, after 30 days, the alternate investment fund will call for the 75 crores from the investors, but it will receive only 60 crores. So this is the shortfall. So who has caused this shortfall? Who has not given this 15 crores? From those investors only you have to collect the cost or the interest. You should not collect the cost from all the investors, but only from those investors who had failed to provide it on time. Only from those investors you have to collect this cost of funds. And next is that SEBI has mandated that all category 1 and category 2 AIF, they have to maintain a cooling period of 30 days. So you borrow money. Today is first. You have borrowed the money and you have paid the money on 20th itself. Then after 30 days, so after almost 1 month only, the next month 20th only, you are allowed to borrow again. Until then you are not allowed to borrow. So this is the cooling off period. This 1 month is the cooling off period. So SEBI has mandated that they have to maintain 30 days cooling off period between two periods of borrowing. So the cooling off period of 30 days will be calculated from the date of repayment of the previous borrowing. So after repaying, from that 30 days is required as a cooling off period, and then only you can make another borrowing. So these are the various conditions. So remember, first is that they have to be, the shortfall amount should be mentioned in the private placement memorandum. Second is that the maximum amount that can be borrowed under the shortfall amount. And third, the cost of borrowing should only be passed to the investors who have failed to provide the drawn down amount. The last one is that there should be a cooling period of at least 30 days between two borrowings. Okay, remember this is very, very important. Next is that large value funds. So large value funds are the funds where the accredited investors invest at least 70 crores. We know that in alternate investment fund, the minimum investment is 1 crore. Similarly, in this large value fund, the accredited investment, they have to invest at least 70 crore. Now, what is this accredited investor? So these are the investors who deal with riskier investment product. So AIF itself is a riskier one. This large value fund is even more riskier. So these accredited investors, they deal with the riskier investment products due to their financial capacity and ability to absorb the possible financial losses. So this is the definition of the accredited investors. Here, large value fund, minimum investment is 70 crores from any accredited investor. So what are the conditions, or what have been the news regarding this large value fund? So if you see, under the current framework, the large value fund, they have the flexibility of potentially unlimited extension. So if you have a fund, then it will have a closing date, right? So by this date, this fund will be matured. So what is that? This large value fund, they can extend the maturity. So suppose it's going to mature by next year, then this large value fund, they can extend it for another 3 years or 4 years. So how it was happening until now is that they will generally extend it for unlimited times. So suppose this year 2024 is the maturity. What they do is they will extend it for another 3 years, 2027. And when 2027 arrive, they will again extend it for another 2030. So they will keep on extending it. So it is an unlimited extension. So what happens because of that is that the people who have invested, their funds remain locked in these funds. I hope you understand. Due to this unlimited extension, the investors who have invested in this fund, their fund remains locked for a perpetual period. So to avoid this, certain conditions have been brought, or certain limits have been set by SEBI. So if you see, what are these limits? So as per the regulation 13.5 of the AIF regulations 2012, LVF, that is large value fund, they are now allowed to extend its tenure only up to 5 years with the consent of 2/3 of the unit holders. So now the extension is not unlimited. You can extend only up to 5 years. That too only when 2/3 of the unit holders say yes to the extension. Next is that while existing LF which have not disclosed a definite period of extension, or whose period of extension is more than 5 years, then they have to realign their extension within 3 months of this circular, that is before 18th November 2024. So there will be certain existing LF who would have told that this extension is for 10 years. In that case, what the SEBI has told that you have to reduce it to 5 years within 3 months. That is before 18 November 2024, the extension should be reduced to 5 years. And also the next news is that SEBI has introduced new framework for the venture capital funds. So now if you see, the venture capital funds can migrate to the AIF, that is alternate investment fund rules. So on 19th August 2024, SEBI has introduced a new framework for the venture capital funds to migrate to the AIF rules. So SEBI has permitted the venture capital funds registered under this act, that is SEBI Regulation Act 1996, to migrate to the AIF. This was they were registered under this act because this was available. Because that time the AIF regulations were not available. That is why the VCF was registered under this act. But now since the AIF regulations are available, now this VCF registration under this act will be allowed to transit to the current regulations. So now SEBI has permitted venture capital funds registered under the SEBI Regulation Act 1996 before the introduction of AI regulations to transition to the current regulation by becoming migrated virtual capital funds. The next news is about Mint IFSC that has launched M1 NXT in GIFT City. So if you see Mint IFSC, This is a subsidiary of the Mint Solutions Private Limited. So what is this Mint Solution Private Limited? This is the operator of India's leading trades platform. So you know that what is trades platform? In trades platform, the MSME sellers, they come and provide their trade receivables, and the financiers, they finance this trade receivables. So apart from MSE sellers and financiers, you also have buyers and insurers. Insurers were recently added to this trades platform as the fourth participant. So initially there were three participants: MSME sellers, financiers and buyers, and recently insurer was added as the fourth participant. So this is a platform where MSME can fund their working capital through their trade receivables. So if you see, IFSCA, it has approved the Mint IFSC to launch M1XT. So what is this ITFC platform? This is International Trade Finance Platform. So here if you see, the MSME, they can come and they can raise funds at a lower cost from the foreign banks. This is the purpose of this M1 Next. So they will come and they provide their trade receivables, and they will get money for their trade receivables from the foreign banks at a lower cost rate. So if you see, the IndusInd Bank Limited is to be the first bank to participate in export financing transactions on the M1 NXT platform. So the Mint Solution Private Limited CEO is Saurav Wadhwa, and it is headquartered in Bengaluru, Karnataka. So remember, Mint IFSC launched M1 NXT platform. Next is the LIC Housing launches Griha Rakshak for the armed forces. So this LIC Housing Finance Limited has launched Griha Rakshak, that is home loan scheme for the Indian Armed Forces. The eligibility is that they should have a minimum CIBIL score of 750, and the offer is that the loan amount of up to 2 crore at 8.4% per annum will be provided to the Indian Armed Forces. The MD and CEO of LIC Housing Finance Limited is T. Adhikari, and it is headquartered in Mumbai, Maharashtra. Next is that the BOB, that is Bank of Baroda, it has secured a loan deal of 5,000 crore with the SAIL, that is Steel Authority of India. So the loan will be offered at an interest rate of 7.49 interest, and it is for a 5-year period. So the money this is obtained from the BOB, this will be used for the SAIL's capital expenditure and the working capital requirement. So we saw recently that Punjab National Bank had entered into an agreement with the SAIL. So this Punjab National Bank will provide loans to the SAIL employees at a concessional interest rate. So this was a recent news that we have read. So it is Punjab National Bank and SAIL to provide loans at a concessional interest rate to the SAIL employees. Here if you see, the Bank of Baroda, it has entered into a loan deal with SAIL for 5,000 crore. SAIL, it is one of the Maharatna Central Public Sector Enterprises, which is headquartered at New Delhi. Next is that NPCI launched UPI Circle for secure delegated payments with trusted users. We read about this delegated payment in the recently released MPC meeting. So this concept was released in the August MPC meeting only. So what is this delegated payment concept? There will be more than one user attached to one single UPI ID. So generally one user will have one UPI ID, right? So this will be helpful in cases where the family members, they don't have a bank account. In that case, that family member can also use this UPI ID as a secondary user. So there will be a primary user and a secondary user. So this secondary user will also be able to use the UPI ID of the primary user. This is the purpose of the delegated payment. So now this UPI Circle feature will be applicable or will be available in the UPI platform. But there are two types. One is partial delegation and another one is full delegation. In full delegation, a maximum limit of monthly limit of rupees 15,000 will be assigned to this secondary user, and a per transaction limit of 5,000. So secondary user, they can use a transaction of rupees 5,000. And the monthly transaction limit for the secondary user would be 15,000. Remember, this limit is very important. Here, what is this partial delegation? Here we know that the secondary user will be associated to this UPI ID, but they can only initiate transaction. So if they want to make a transaction for say rupees 2,000, then they can initiate the transaction. In order to get the transaction completed, this will go to the primary user. So the primary user will enter the PIN and then complete the transaction. Only then the amount will be debited from the UPI related bank account. Remember, two types. One is partial, another one is full. Full, the monthly limit is 15,000 and the transaction limit is 5,000. In partial, the secondary user can only initiate the transaction. The primary user only must complete it by entering the PIN. So this is the feature of the UPI circle that has been introduced by the NPCI. Next is that PNB launches PNB Antardrishti Braille debit card. So Braille, you know that it is a language for the visually impaired people. So if you see, it will be like this only, Braille language. So it will be a kind of raised. These dots will be raised. So they will follow this impression to understand whatever is written on the paper or on the board. So this is Braille language. So if you see, the PNB has launched PNB Antardrishti Braille debit card. This is for the visually impaired customers, and also it has launched contactless NCMC card, and this is available at the Rupee network. So this network associated to this NCMC card is Rupee network. The card cash withdrawal limit at the ATM is 25,000 per day, and the POS, that is point of sale limit, is 60,000 per day. So remember, the card cash withdrawal is 25,000 and the POS limit is 60,000. And the PNB MD and CEO is Atul Kumar Goyal, and the headquarters is in New Delhi. The next news is about the penalties imposed on 5 financial entities by RBI. So the 5 financial entities are CSB, that is Catholic Syrian Bank, and the penalty imposed was 1.86 crore. Next is UBI, that is Union Bank of India, 1.06 crore. Next is Muthoot Housing Finance Company Limited, that is Muthoot Housing Finance Company Limited, 5 lakh. Next is Nido Housing Finance Limited of 5 lakh penalty, and the last one is Ashoka Viniyoga Limited of penalty 3.1 lakh. So these are the 5 entities on which RBI has imposed penalties for regulatory violations. Next is about issuing NBFC license to a fintech startup. So RBI has issued a NBFC license to the Mumbai-based rural-focused fintech startup called J Kisan. So for this J Kisan startup, RBI has issued NBFC license. So now using this license, this J Kisan will be able to focus on the loan distribution and co-lending. The next news is about a new index fund and ETF that has been launched. So DSP Mutual Fund has launched India's first Nifty Top 10 Equal Weight Index Fund and ETF. So this index fund and ETF will imitate the Nifty Top 10 Equal Weight. So this will be the base. Nifty Top 10 Equal Weight Index will be the base, and from this index fund has been formed. So if you see, the DSP Nifty Top 10 Equal Weight Index is tracking the Nifty Top 10 Equal Weight Index. So whatever stocks are there in this Nifty Top 10 will also be available in this DSP Top 10, and the weightage will also be quite similar. So the return that is given by this Nifty Top 10 will be the same return given by the DSP Nifty Top 10 also. So if you see, this will provide returns that are consistent with the performance of the Nifty Top 10 Equal Weight Index. So this is a new index fund and ETF that has been launched by the DSP Mutual Fund. The next news is that RBI has issued certificate of registration to the Tata Capital Limited for NBFC ICIC status, that is Investment Credit Company. So if you see, previously it had CIC registration status, that is Core Investment Company, and from that now it has received the status called NBFC ICIC status. If you see, in 2019, 3 NBFC were merged to form this ICIC. Those are Asset Finance Company, next Investment Company, and next is Loan Company. So these 3 NBFC, that is Asset Finance Company, Investment Company and Loan Company, were merged to form Investment Credit Company. So this is the new status that has been provided, or new registration that has been provided to the Tata Capital Limited, and the new net owned fund that has to be maintained is 2 crores. So remember, certificate of registration of ICC status has been provided to the Tata Capital Limited. The next is also about a monetary penalty that is being imposed by RBI. So on Bank of Maharashtra for 1.27 crore, on Hinduja Leland Finance Limited for 4.9 lakh, and Poonawalla Fincorp for 10 lakh. Remember the 3 names: Bank of Maharashtra, Hinduja Leland, and then Poonawalla Fincorp. The next is about a new type of bond that has been issued. So IBRD, it is the arm of World Bank, that is International Bank for Reconstruction and Development. It had issued the world's first carbon removal bond. So the money that's been raised from these bond will be used to fund the Amazon reforestation. So if you see, the tenure of the bond is for 9 years and the amount that will be raised from this bond will be around $225 million. And the minimum guarantee return that is be assured by this bond will be 1.745% and up to a maximum of 4.362% is expected if the project performs well. So IBRD has issued the world first carbon removal bond for worth $225 million. The next news is RBI granting approval to the IndusInd Bank. So RBI has provided approval to the IndusInd Bank to set up a wholly owned subsidiary. So this subsidiary of the IndusInd Bank will take care of the asset management business. So basically this subsidiary will take care of the mutual fund business. That is the purpose of the subsidiary. So RBI has granted approval to the IndusInd Bank Limited to set up a wholly owned subsidiary to undertake the asset management business. And for this purpose, the IndusInd Bank will infuse an equity capital in this newly formed subsidiary. The MD and CEO of IndusInd Bank is Sumant Katpalia and it is headquartered in Mumbai, Maharashtra. The next is about a co-branded credit card. So ABFL is nothing but Aditya Birla Finance Limited. It is a wholly owned subsidiary of the Aditya Birla Capital Limited. So that and AU Small Finance Bank, that is the largest small finance bank, together they have launched a credit card called Aditya Birla Finance AU Credit Card. So this will be powered by Visa and RuPay. So if you see, there are 4 variants. One is that ABC AU Flex. So this is for the mass market, that is for the entire people. And next is ABC AU Next. This is for the young professionals. Next is the ABC AU Pro. This is for the high net individuals. And the last one, ABC AU Biz, is for the entrepreneurs and the business people. So these are the 4 variants that are introduced in collaboration with ABFL and AU Small Finance Bank. If you see ABFL, the Managing Director and CEO is Rakesh Singh, and AU Small Finance Bank, the MD and CEO is Sanjay Agarwal. If you see, recently a small finance bank had been merged with AU Small Finance Bank. Name the small finance bank that had been merged with AU Small Finance Bank in the comment section. Next is a new deposit scheme that has been announced by RBL Bank. So if you see, RBL Bank, to honor the 78th Independence Day, it had announced Vijay Fixed Deposit Scheme. So the tenure will be 500 days and this is for deposits lesser than 3 crores. So we know that the bulk deposit, it was previously up to 2 crores and now it has been raised to 3 crores. So bulk deposit means if you deposit more than 3 crores, then that is considered as a bulk deposit. So any deposit lesser than 3 crores will be considered as a non-bulk deposits. So interest rate, if you see, for the super senior citizen, that is for citizens aged above 80 years, it is 8.85. Senior citizen, it is 8.6 and regular customer, it is 8.1. And recently in news, we saw that the RBL was the first private sector bank to inaugurate both the UPI feature and the NCMC card feature on a RuPay credit card. The MD and CEO is R. Subramanian Kumar. So remember, it is Vijay Fixed Deposit Scheme that has been launched by RBL. And recently in news we saw that the finance minister as well as the governor is quite concerned about the CD ratio. CD ratio is nothing but credit to deposit ratio. So here if you see, the credit is growing at a faster rate than the deposit. So it's kind of difficult for the banks to fund their credit because only when they get a lot of deposit, that money they will use it for credit purpose. But now they are finding it very difficult to mobilize deposits. So it is becoming a questioning scenario. So the credit is growing faster, but the deposit is growing comparatively at a slower rate. So nowadays the banks are introducing new deposit schemes to attract the deposits from the customers, and this scheme is one such scheme. Next is that ICICI Lombard. It has entered into bank insurance partnership with 7 institutions. So ICICI Lombard, and these are the 7 institutions. Let me tell you a bank acronym to remember this. Remember this acronym, BANKMAN. So for ICICI Lombard, remember this acronym, BANKMAN. So B for Bandhan Bank, A for I Finance Limited, N for Nivara Home Finance Limited, K for Karnataka Bank Limited. And for MAN, M for Muthoot Mini Financier Limited, and A, Andhra Pradesh State Cooperative Bank Limited, and N, NSDL Payment Bank Limited. So this is the acronym for Bank MAN. Remember, ICICI Lombard, it has partnered with 7 financial institutions for bank assurance. So by this financial institution partnership for bank assurance, you'll be able to increase the distribution network and able to sell more insurance policies to the customers. So the MD and CEO of ICICI Lombard is Sanjeev Mantri. It is headquartered in Mumbai, Maharashtra. Thank you for watching the session. I hope you had enjoyed it. We're also available in Telegram under the name AffairsCloud_official. We also have an Instagram handle. Apart from this, you can contact us directly on 9677333862 regarding any courses that we offer or regarding any payment issues. You can contact on directly on this number. Thank you.